Hello. This is the second video of the day. If you haven't seen the last Venus video, check it out, and this is the first history video on this channel. It's going to be a long video, so I hope you're ready. The video will be about Caesar, who did not know in the Ides of March 44 BC Julius Caesar was killed by a bunch of conspirators who called themselves liberators. What happened next and why did the freedom they fought for not prevail? Caesar lay dead in a pool of blood beneath the statue of Pompey. Before he died, he had pulled his toga over his head and unfastened its folds with his left hand to fall decently, covered with purple. The conspirators wanted to throw his body into the Tiber, but panic set in. In the confusion, Caesar's body lay in an empty hall until 3 slaves, weeping, carried him on a stretcher and carried him home. From the stretcher dangled helplessly the arm of the all-powerful dictator who, only yesterday, commanded half the world. Word spread quickly through the city that he was dead. Some could not believe it. Some frantically packed their bags and fled Rome. There was crush and confusion everywhere. No one knew who was attacking, who was friend or foe. Mark Antony and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, Caesar's closest supporters, hid, fearing reprisals. But Brutus insisted that no one should die but Caesar. Caesar's death was liberation. The death of Antony and the others was vulgar murder. The conspirators marched triumphantly to the Capitol with swords soaked in Caesar's blood, shouting for liberty and urging everyone to join them. They were proud to have killed the tyrant. It was all very beautiful, but completely ill-considered. They thought they would be greeted with enthusiasm, showered with flowers. They thought that if Caesar died, everything would magically return to normal, as if he had never existed. However, Rome was already changed, and there was no turning back. They suddenly discovered that things were bad. Rome was full of Caesar's veterans. They had come to receive their rewards and lands, but more importantly to escort their commander on the campaign against Parthia, where Caesar was to depart on March 18th. They loved Caesar and owed him everything. And his treacherous murder could not please them at all. There was one legion in full arms in the city. It was commanded by Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, a staunch supporter of Caesar. Brutus himself, the conspirators' thought leader, was in a strange position. In 44 BC he was a praetor. Caesar himself and Mark Antony were consuls. It turned out that he was not a representative of the government. He had no official authority, and could not give any orders, convene the Senate, etc. Mark Antony became officially in charge of the state. When you kill a tyrant for liberty, for the laws, for the Republic, you simply cannot take command in place of a legitimate consul, without authority, without being elected by the people, as the Republican tradition demands. The crowd assembled outside the Capitol was not at all enthusiastic. Brutus was allowed to speak, but as soon as one of Caesar's assassins began to speak of the tyrant's sins, angry shouts could be heard among the crowd. The conspirators then decided to distribute money to the people in order to calm them down and change the mood of the crowd. To quote the historian Appian, but they were not conscious that they had to count on 2 opposite moods to each other, i.e., that those around them would love freedom, and at the same time, serve their interests for a fee. Most of all, people wanted peace and the certainty of tomorrow. They were tired of the constant showdown between the powerful oligarchs, tired of the carnage. No one really knew what was coming, but everyone was afraid of war. Brutus and Cassius were then forced to offer Antony and Lepidus negotiations, seeing that there was no general jubilation. Antony and Lepidus wanted revenge. They wanted a redistribution of power. It was a good opportunity for them to deal with the opposition once and for all. But they did not dare to act at once, for they did not understand the balance of power. Negotiations were a good way of buying time to find out who was on whose side. So Antony, as consul, convened the Senate. The senators, though trembling with fear, nevertheless assembled. They discussed how to interpret what had happened. Who should Brutus and Cassius be? Liberators or common murderers? After a heated debate, they all agreed that there was only one question: was Caesar a tyrant, so Brutus and Cassius were tyrannical heroes, or a lawful official, so Brutus and Cassius were murderers? This question was not an easy one. The fact is that before the Parthian campaign, Caesar compiled a list of officials for 5 years ahead, where it was written out who would hold what positions and in what order. Moreover, all the incumbent officials were also appointed by Caesar. Thus, Brutus and Cassius were praetors, and the following year they were to be given the provinces of Macedonia, Brutus, and Syria, Cassius. So, if Caesar is a tyrant, then all his orders must be annulled. All must resign their powers and disperse. The people must elect new officials by ballot, as required by the laws of the Republic. And those who, according to Caesar's plan, should have held lucrative and honorable positions for all 5 years, there is nothing to say about them. Who knows what the tyrant had in mind? As soon as everyone realized that this matter directly affected their interests, the outcries began. Especially those who would certainly not have been able to get posts in the Republican way, like Cicero's son-in-law Publius Cornelius Dolabella, who was 25 years old, and the minimum age for a senator was 27. And yet there were already cries of revenge for Caesar among the people. They greatly spurred the Senate to the necessary decision. Caesar's veterans were the decisive argument. Namely, those of them who had received or should have received land from Caesar. If Caesar is a tyrant, then the land should be taken from them. Who knows what they would do then? On March 17th, the third day after Caesar's murder, the Senate decided that all of Caesar's decisions would stand, and that his murderers would receive an amnesty. Well, it seems to have been agreed. Cicero wrote bitterly, "How did my Brutus commit this, Caesar's murder? So that everything done, written, said, promised, conceived by Caesar would have more force than if he himself were alive." At the same meeting, at the insistence of Caesar's father-in-law, Calpurnius Pison, it was decided to hold a solemn funeral for Caesar, and to read his will publicly. I suppose Caesar's assassins regretted it 300 times afterwards. When the people saw the body of their favorite, their hero and benefactor, Rome went into a frenzy. Antony, seeing that the people were clearly set against the conspirators, staged a model performance of his funeral speech. He waved Caesar's blood-stained toga like a banner, wept and called the murderers base scoundrels. His words aroused sympathy in the crowd, because it was really those who killed Caesar who owed their position, wealth and life to him. The conspirators were even worse off when Caesar's will was read. Caesar was true to himself to the last. He posthumously adopted by will his grandnephew Gaius Octavius, who received Caesar's name and 3/4 of his fortune. Some of his assassins were named by Caesar in his will as second-line heirs. They were named in case the first-line heirs were unable or unwilling to enter into their rights. Their crime now looked doubly treasonous. But most of all, the people were furious after reading the part of Caesar's will where he gave the people his gardens on the Tiber and 300 sesterces to every Roman. Z00 sesterces is roughly a legionary's salary for 3 months. Legionnaires' wages weren't bad. So Caesar made the whole Roman people his heir. And this man's murderers were pardoned. The mob wanted to set fire to the houses of those who had taken part in Caesar's murder and tear them to pieces. But the liberators had escaped and could not be found. The building of the Curia of Pompey, where Caesar had been killed, was set on fire. Caesar's body was burned with great honor in the Forum, where now are the ruins of the Temple of Divine Julius, built by his heir, who took the name Gaius Julius Caesar Octavian. The Roman crowd broke the compromise reached in the Senate. Antony realized that he could well replace Caesar and eliminate his rivals under the guise of revenge for his treacherous murder. Brutus and Cassius thought it best to flee Rome. Thus began a new civil war. Yes, history is interesting. And you subscribe to the channel, like it, write comments and goodbye.